Good evening. Good evening. I am Sakina Alston, and I thank you for joining more than you know. Uh, so let's see. I had my stuff open a minute ago, but it's not right now. It's easy to get open, so bear with me a minute. Um, all right. So I am Sakina Alston, and I am many things. I love to start off saying many things because I don't like anyone to think that I favor one thing over the other. If I did favor a thing, it would be being a woman, though, right? So a lot of times I'll lead with that. So I'm a woman, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And before that, I was a registered nurse in the pediatric emergency room, so the trauma bay, in the level one trauma bay. So I have I'm a daughter as well, obviously. That makes sense. But anyway, I have lived a lot of life experience. I'm an immigrant too. That's a big deal to me. And so I think I'm very culturally rounded, and I've learned a lot of things just by my life experience, and also by my education, and then my professional experience. Because being in level one trauma bay in the pediatric ER, you're gonna learn some things. All right. So anyway, I also made I've written at least I've written two books, but one is published. One is a journal. It's right here actually. Um, this is a workbook journal, and it helps. It's written at a teenage level, so that because most of the United States reads actually at a fifth grade level. I don't know if you guys know that, but they do. So it's written at a teenage level, but it's for anybody. Um, what I teach is well, we'll get into that in a minute, but I'm an author, and I'm a private practice owner. So I have my own private practice as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I accept lots of insurances so people can get to mentorship that way as well. And then I created this Clock It Academy because I want to speak to people who just want life coaching and in on various different levels, right? So anyway, so Clock It is basically the theme of what I do, right? The theme of the school, and Clock It is really a method, right? It's a method that I used during my darkest times to figure out what was blocking me from my blessings, what was making me feel weighted down, make me not be able to see clearly, not be able to make any plans for the future. Like literally, that's kind of how I knew what that something was wrong because I couldn't make any plans for the future, right? So anyway, that got me to a point when I was really down, and I started to notice patterns that had always been there, but because I was so down and out, I could validate what I was seeing in the pattern, right? And so as I was doing that, and I had to fight my way out of a low place, right? And I didn't get any support, meaning that no one could tell me how to get out of that place, right? So I had to figure it out. So basically, figured it out. I can make lots of plans for the future now, right? I've written two books since then. I've opened this academy. My private practice is definitely on the move. And it was after I applied this clock it method to my own life, right? So because it saved me from such a dark place, I want to teach other people. So that's why we're here, right? And so clock it is a method I created after years of watching people get confused, gaslit, manipulated, or drained because no one ever taught them how to read emotional patterns. That's by design, right? No one's going to teach you how to read emotional patterns if they're using those same emotional patterns to control you or at least manipulate you to get the best of you. You know, some people do this uh, thinking it's harmless. It's just the only way that they know how to get what they want. And if you stick with me, we'll get real deep into that. That's the ego issue. But anyway, um, So tonight is just like an introductory session for that, and I will walk you through the 5 mechanisms of clocking it. And we can unpack your real life if you have any questions from your day after we talk. Um, all right, let's see. All right, let's see. All right, okay. All right, so why is it important to clock it? So most people, like I said, were never taught how to interpret tone, intent, patterns, or power dynamics. And I'll say the nuances of power
Mm,
dynamics.
mm,
I
mm.
think that, I think that most people, get into the tea, I think that most people actually, what's so awful? What's so awful about these insights that we're going to find out is that you're going to find out that when they say every lie is 80% the truth, what they mean by that is very true, right? The same mechanisms that are used to manipulate you and the same people that use those mechanisms probably taught you how to identify those mechanisms, but not enough. So maybe 75%, so that you could, because you if you were in their circle, you needed to not be a weight, so they couldn't keep you completely in the dark. Okay, so they'll teach you some of their tricks. Okay, and they don't even know a lot of the time the power that they have, because they're not thinking about the big picture. They are thinking about what they want specifically. Okay, and that's how they lead you away from what you want. And so I'm leading you back to what you want, and I'm showing you how it happens because it's very subtle. So, let's see. All right. So, because people, they're not taught how they're either not taught or they're manipulated while they're being taught. Okay, being told half truths, which is the gaslighting and manipulation. So they're not taught how to interpret tone, intent, patterns, or power dynamics. And so what they are taught simultaneously is to ignore their gut, right? Very dangerous game, because everything is tied to our gut, like our mood and everything. And you'll see that as we go through. So as you're taught to ignore your gut, you're disconnecting from your central nervous system. Okay, so that starts by people telling you you didn't see what you saw, and you didn't, and by minimizing your feelings. Okay, they're leading you away from what gut is telling you, but they do it very, very subtly, because usually, like I said, it's by being dismissive and by devaluing your experience. Already you should see that this can happen in many, 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 many environments. I know from being a black person, being African American, whatever you want to call it. Uh, a lot of you've seen this week at least 2 pregnant African American ladies be ignored while they're actively in labor. Like the baby is crowned, the baby is ready to come out, and nobody looks urgent. There's 2 lives in the balance, and nobody looks urgent, right? So being dismissed, your whole existence, the existence of the fear that you have when you're bringing a child into the world, all this kind of stuff happens every day in every way, right? There's lots of people getting dismissed. We're so if I go and I'm in labor, right, and my baby's about to be born in 12 minutes, right, but nobody's rushing, nobody's running to get a wheelchair or pain medicine or another doctor or anything like that. That is how people subtly teach me that my baby's life is not important, that my life is not important, that I'm making too much noise, all this stuff. It's very, very subtle, because nobody has to say anything, and it's every day. All right, so uh you're taught to doubt yourself, and I just gave you at least one example. So, and today the goal is I'm supposed to keep it real, cute and short, and I'm supposed to just I want you to leave with a new level of clarity than you had before you came to the live. um I just checked back to see if anybody else is trying to get in here, because I'm trying to see how that will look. And then, all right. So, all right. So now we're going to get into the five mechanisms, right? There's the five mechanisms I like to clock. I don't always call them the same thing, but they're basically systems, right? So you're going to watch your body. Um, you're going to clock patterns. You're definitely going to clock language. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite one. And you're going to you need the language so that you can put it to the strategy. All right, because anyway, so you clock the strategy, and then you have to make boundaries, because that's the antidote to getting yourself free from this entanglement, because that's exactly what it is. It's an entanglement. All right, so the body mechanism. So your body always knows before your brain, meaning logic, catches up, right? Your body knows. So when you're being gaslit and or manipulated, or people are lying, straight fraud, devaluing you, whatever they're doing, what your body is doing is what is correct, right? So you need to learn about tension in your body. You need to learn you need to even learn about the chakras, so that you know that when you have a certain part of your body, what is being blocked. All of those things line up, and we can get deeper into that. But um, basically, when your nervous system is being trained by somebody who's trying to manipulate you, if you if you keep on ignoring your gut, so your gut is the main part of your body that is related to your mood and mental well-being, right? That's why if you get nervous, you'll get bubble guts and things like that, and so many other GI problems that are related to your mood. Um, and we can get very, very deep into that if you stick with me. But so anyway, pay attention to what your body's doing, right? So stuff like sweating, okay, getting clammy, all right, um, nauseous, can't eat, um, I don't know, biting your fingernails, twirling your hair, just anything. Just know your body, all right. And then and what you need to do is, when you notice a change in your body, you need to surveil the environment. You need to see anything from what day of the week is it, what time of the day is it, who's around, what do your finances look like, what holiday is coming up, what season is it, right? So that you can identify a pattern, which is number two, the next mechanism, right? So first you have to notice things, and you need to notice what's going on with your body. This is all about turning back into yourself, because you have been led away from yourself. All right. So you're paying attention to your body, and then you're clocking patterns, right? So behavior is always a pattern. There's never an accident. Never. Okay. That when they say there's no coincidences, that's true. There can't be a coincidence, because of the way that our mind works. All right. Um everything that we think about, that's what we attract, right? So there's no accident if if we have control over what we think, right? And so then if somebody else is hijacking what we think, then it is no accident also when they are controlling your thoughts. All right, put that together. You can't. So behavior is always a pattern, right? So you just watch. If someone always minimizes you, that's a pattern, right? And I'm putting the word always in there, because if you don't know that you should be watching a pattern, then each event looks like a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle, right? And it really doesn't mean anything, right? You should definitely think of pattern mastering patterns like a jigsaw puzzle, like one of them 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles, because if you only have one piece, it will mean nothing, right? Think about how people act when they see one piece of a 1,000-piece puzzle, right? If it's a mom and she's cleaning up, she's just gonna pick up that one piece and throw it in the trash, or she'll vacuum it or whatever, because it means nothing by itself, right? But that's why you need to recognize every behavior as a pattern. So when somebody does something, and we're just using minimizes you for this example, you should be expecting there to be another piece of that pattern, because the puzzles don't change. If you have a Spider-Man puzzle and you lose a piece of it, it's not gonna fit into a Barbie puzzle. That's not how it works, right? So when you get a piece of information, a piece of the puzzle, every interaction should be a data collection moment. And the reason why that is because I never used to be like that, but because I was in my own lane and I thought that that's what it meant by minding my own business. But then I would allow people to watch me and gather data from me. And when I got out of the entanglement where everybody was doing that to me, it was because I started watching them too. I had to. I'm not jealous, so I had to teach myself to do that, because I couldn't care less what somebody else is doing. But that's what I'm teaching you guys, because you might be the same as me and you might not care what somebody else is doing either. But you still need to pay attention. Every interaction is a data collection moment, because if you don't remember, I told you that every lie is 80% the truth, right? So whoever taught you that core value of being really private, I'm almost losing my train of thought, but 80% of the truth. You don't need to watch people. So if someone taught you a core value, right, to stay in your lane and don't watch other people, right, they probably were teaching you for their benefit so that you wouldn't watch them, right? And they probably were watching you. That's how that ages, right? So, because we shouldn't be assuming that anybody is watching us or jealous, unless we know that people are capable of doing that. So that probably, if someone taught you that, then that means that they know that already, right? Anyway, 80% of the truth. You need to be watching what other people are doing. This is how you're going to get the pattern, right? And I don't mean watching them in a jealous way. I mean notice. So if someone minimizes you, that's when you perk up. Don't let something that's very small and nuanced slide. Think, where's the rest of the puzzle, so you can scan back in your past relationship with this person and just see, because you might find some of the pieces there too, or you can just be on alert for in the future interactions with that person. All right. So if someone, listen, I'll just give you a few. If they always minimize you, because these are things that have no receipt, right? So they can tell you that it didn't happen, right? So that's why you need to keep track of the pattern yourself. Not always a discussion with the person, but you just keep it in your mind, right? So they might minimize you. They might change tone. They might change the tone of their voice when they want something from you, or they might change the tone of the relationship. Okay. So someone that calls you every morning and says good morning, but they asked you last evening what you want to eat for dinner, and they wanted Chinese food, and you said you wanted Red Lobster. So they went to Red Lobster, but then tomorrow morning they don't call you to say good morning. Put it as part of the pattern, okay? Because even though it seems so small, because that's what they'll do. They'll gaslight you and they'll say, well, why do I have to call you at 9 o'clock in the morning every single day? That is controlling. You're controlling. That is a projection. Okay. Because if they've been calling you at 9 o'clock every morning, they are accessing your dopamine. Okay. This is why it's not okay to just switch up the pattern, right? Because you're not a rat in a lab. And so if you before you met this person, before you start dating, say you get up at whatever time, maybe you get up at 10 o'clock, right? But then since you meet this person, they start to call you at 9 o'clock, and you just go along with it because you don't think it's any big deal. You're giving in to this person, but now you're getting up at 9 o'clock every single day. And you're happy about it, right? And you think this person cares about you so much and everything like that. But you won't even notice that when you chose Red Lobster instead of choosing what you know that they like, right? That they didn't call you. But guess who will know and who will never forget? Your nervous system. Okay? So the person and people or entities that are manipulating you, they actually love the fact that you don't notice that it's going on. Okay, they are accessing your nervous system. This is why it should be illegal. It's like a backdoor theft, right? So I said they're dropping the water on you. There's research on this. You can go look it up. um I'll have to come, I'll probably put a reference in what study I'm talking about, where they were dropping water on the rats heads, because people have learned how to do this. So anyway, person's calling you every day at 9 o'clock, you choose the wrong restaurant, um and they don't call you at 9 o'clock the next day. So next day you wake up at 9 o'clock, but you have a whole hour where there's nothing to do, because you normally would get up at 10 a.m. So then you're thinking about them for the whole hour, right? So it's like their passive income to your energy, right? Because it's work that's going on where they barely had to lift a finger, right? But trust me, the next time that they ask you what you want to eat, right? Your nervous system will answer for you. It might not be the very next time, but maybe it will be, you know, after 10 years or so, to the point where now you forgot that you even like Red Lobster. This is how it goes. So this is why you have to watch the patterns. All right. So whenever your nervous system feels funny, remember that's the first thing you got to notice, right? You trust that, right? And then you look to associate it to a pattern. What else is going on? Is somebody minimizing you? What's happening? Are they changing the tone? Are they just, and like I said, changing the tone is so subtle. Don't just didn't call you at 9 o'clock, called you at 10 and told you that. Why are you making a big deal about it? All right. So then and then someone who gets defensive when you set a boundary. All right, if they get defensive when you set a boundary, then um that is teaching you to not have any boundaries, in the same way that I showed you in the step before. All right, so now 3, the language mechanism. Manipulators will play with words, and they do this on such a level that you would think that it's complex, right? Nothing a manipulator does is complex. It's all very, very basic. Once you figure it all out, it'll become a joke to you if you can have a dark sense of humor, all right? Because you might be angry, because they're not doing anything that requires a lot of intellect to do, right? So they play with words, all right? So so what you should look for, right, in terms of language, is that is vague phrases. So anything ambiguous and not clear as mud, anything that's clear as mud. All right. And you don't need to go and try to have a conversation with a language manipulator. Okay. You just need to notice. We're never going to get away from step 1, which is basically notice, right? So you watch the language. So if you are dealing with people who, when they speak, they use vague phrases, their stories change, they shift blame, right? Shifting blame can also look like never taking up accountability, because it just depends who you're dealing with. They might not verbalize that it's someone else's fault, but they don't have to do that if they've mastered verbalizing that it's not their fault. Okay, there's just lots and lots of ways to do this, right? Deflection, like I just said. Pressure, and the pressure could be subtle. It could be, from step 2, where the tone is changed. So you're walking down the street with somebody, and you're holding hands. You walk past the ice cream shop. You you They say they want to go in the ice cream shop. You say you don't want to go in the ice cream shop. Now you're not holding hands anymore, and they're walking on one side of the sidewalk. As a matter of fact, you're walking on the side where the cars are, and you weren't before, right? It's going to be very, 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 very subtle, right? So subtle that you will question yourself if it's really happening. And you cannot look to society to affirm you or validate you, because everybody is getting some kind of manipulated and gaslit and they're in the fog, fear, obligation, and guilt. They can't validate you. You have to use your own nervous system, and that's why you have to notice when and how people are hijacking it. That's just the way I have to say it. Hijacking your nervous system, like you're just literally a puppet, and this is how they do it. So, anyway, so they apply pressure. Pressure is if you're getting a warm hug from somebody and they release it, right? You notice that. You notice the draft. So your nervous system will connect that draft to whatever else was going on for you in the background. This is why people, when they end up having things like anxiety or fits of anger, just mood swings, mood disorders, and stuff like that, it's literally because what they know, their nervous system is so detached from what they know. So maybe their soul or something like that, right? Their nervous system's here, their soul's over here, their ego's one place, and it's because they're not the one in control of it, right? So another language thing that the manipulators use is fake confusion. Fake confusion, okay? That's when they say nobody heard you more than somebody who says, huh? Listen, when you talk about noticing things, notice that. Just from this day on forward, every single time you hear the word ha being used, H-U-H, right? Check the situation to see if you believe the person really heard you already. Okay? Because I'm gonna say 99.9 times out of 100, they definitely heard you, right? So fake confusion. I didn't hear you. I heard you wrong. The phone got disconnected. Um, just fake confusion. Okay, language games. Then the strategy mechanism. So people who manipulate you depend on your hesitation, guilt, or desire to keep the peace, right? So if they're dependent on your hesitation, guilt, and desire to keep the peace, those become um, they become where you are vulnerable and where they target their strategies. All right. So if they always present with urgency, it's because you hesitate. And so if you have to make a fast decision, they know you're not going to make the decision that benefits you because you're hesitating, and they're making sure you hesitate by making it urgent. So you have to understand the strategy is to everything's urgent. Everything is urgent, right? So when you're talking or dealing with somebody, and it could be your job, like it could be your boss or whatever, this is when you get an email on Friday evening, right? Friday evening. The urgency is that they want you to think about them all weekend, right? It's obviously not urgent because they wouldn't do it on a Friday evening. It at least would have been Friday morning, if not another day in the week. So just understand, if somebody's emailing you on Friday evening, you do not have to answer them until Monday, sometimes Tuesday, because the urgency is probably fake. And then pity is another one. So they have a sob story. I'm sure you've heard of that one. Then triangulation. They'll use other people. They will show favor to other people or to other situations. They will create like they've got options. It's all making you, and remember, they use all these strategies together, right? So so if they're using like changing the tone, right? So they didn't call you this day, they will also throw in some triangulation, right? It will be because I had to call someone else, right? So and this could look so many ways, because you if they'll minimize your concern, because say if they have to call someone else in your spot, right? All of a sudden, right? And it's like, say it's like their job or the kid's school or something like that, they will gaslight you if you bring it up, because they're not cheating, you know what I'm saying? So so it's very, very, very hard to prove, because whether they're cheating or not, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that they have hijacked your nervous system. They literally put you in a position where you thought about them for a whole 60 minutes, because just because they taught you to wake up at 9 o'clock and expect a phone call, and you didn't have anything else to do for that hour. So that's why this is really, really important to understand. And you have to have all the pieces so that you can validate yourself, because some of this stuff it can change your life, but it's not going to be illegal, right? So you have to validate yourself so that you can keep enough confidence, because the lower your confidence is, the easier it is for people to manipulate you. Because, like I said, you want to be liked, right? And you want to feel good. And remember, they're accessing your dopamine. So if you feel bad because you have low self-esteem, that gives them so much more power, especially since they know how to access your dopamine. That's why you need to be the one that knows how to access your dopamine. So if I'm showing you how someone else can access it, then maybe you should be able to access it for yourself and control it in the same way that other people can control you. So, all right, love bombing. A lot of people know that term. Love bombing literally is just being super, 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 super nice to you, nice enough to the point where they can make your dopamine and other love chemicals go crazy, so that you have a chemical reaction. Okay, it's like turning up the heat literally, so that they can come and turn down the heat later. Literally, it's like that. So subtle undermining. So the strategy mechanism. A lot of times, grandparents will do this with their grandchildren, so they circumvent their own child's authority, right? This could be subtle things, like you say you're raising your children to be, this isn't even subtle, this is, but listen, hey, we get so desensitized to things, but say you are raising your children as vegan, right? But every time they go to your mom's house, she's giving them fried chicken. Subtle undermining. That one's not subtle at all, but like that's the one that I could come up with. So just to keep it moving, but that's the type of thing. It might be that even if it's a little thing, like they're not allowed to, they go to their grandma's house and the grandma gives the chocolate before dinner, right? It's that's the grandma is doing that to get validation. She knows it's not healthy for the child. It undermines the parents in a way that's not healthy for anybody. All right, so this is all what manipulators do. If the math is not mathing, like why would a grandmother do something that is not healthy against her own grandchild, to circumvent her own child? Whenever you see a situation like that that makes zero sense, then probably we're dealing with people or systems that have very, very, very low emotional vibrations. And so that's why it's not going to make sense. Remember, I told you that people that deal with these mechanisms of control or coping, they don't use intellectual strategies. They use very basic strategies. So much so that I'm tempted to call every single class that I teach on this 101, because there is nothing complicated about what I'm saying. It's just that it doesn't have to be complicated to work. Okay. So, all right, the strategy mechanism. So, and then future faking. Oh my goodness. So once a person knows that they know how to access your dopamine, they might not even know that it's called dopamine or what they're doing. That doesn't matter. They know by you showing your emotions. So, just telling them that you were wondering where they were or whatever. They know if they can get a reaction of you, then they know that they're in this spot where they can future fake you, right? Because if they, so in the experiment with the rats, and I have to go and read because it's been decades since I've read it, but there's something where they're dropping water on the rats' heads or something like that, and even when they stop dropping the water, I guess the rats still show up for the water, right? So it's classical conditioning. And when somebody knows how to access your dopamine. And like I said, it's in tiny, tiny ways. Like it might be a phone call, it might be a good night text, it might be holding your hand when you walk down this particular block or whatever, right? But and they can make your dopamine go up. And then at will, they can make it go down just by not doing that thing, right? They also can make up lies about the future because your nervous system has already associated that person and their whole vibe with the dopamine going up, right? So they position themselves to be perfectly able to feed you breadcrumbs for the rest of life once they learn you, right? So if they say to you, yeah, I'm gonna do like, I don't know, like something in the future. I'm gonna take you on a date. I'm gonna take you on a date, right? So every time you go on a date, you have to plan it and you have to pay for it or whatever. And then so they say, "Oh, I'm gonna take you on a date," and so then you might take them on a couple more dates while you're waiting because your dopamine went up as soon as they even said they were gonna take you on a date. Your dopamine in your central nervous system responded positively to that. And then they'll just cue in the gaslighting and straight out lying. Remember saying they never said that kind of thing. And it doesn't matter because in the moment they got what they wanted from you because your dopamine was under their control and not yours. So maybe whatever you were complaining about, you stopped talking about it because that's, everything is a tool. This is future faking is under the strategy mechanism, right? So when when the person is making up the lie about what they're going to do in the future, they're not attached to that at all. You're the only one that's attached to that, right? And they only need you to be attached to that so that you can be not attached to whatever it is they don't want to deal with in the moment right there, right? It's a distraction. That's what the strategy mechanism is about. Always going to be a distraction. And so the part that I think I really learned this year, really the deep dive of it all, is that all of that distraction and privacy, like I really understood when they're telling the lie and 80% of it is the truth. I got to see what that 20% does in your life, right? Because the 20% that is the lie is where they're accessing your dopamine and making it go up and down and up and down. Now, you actually need control of your dopamine to manifest the future that you want, or the present that you want, right? So if somebody else is accessing your dopamine, they're creating, you would think it would be the future that they want, but remember, they're in low level classes, so they don't have a future to be creating. Okay, so it'll just be chaos. It'll just be chaos if you allow them to make the roadmap of your neurons and central nervous system. Um, all right, so the boundary mechanism. All right, so a boundary is not a line; it's a shift in behavior, right? This is what people also don't understand. So number five is so this is the five mechanisms of clocking it, and number five is like in conclusion, in summary, because once you've figured out, once you notice everything in the body mechanism, and then you put that to the pattern, right? And then you get the language to know what to call it, if you have to report it, if you just have to expose somebody, if you got to call them out, you need the language, right? And then you have the strategy, so you understand it wouldn't be the why probably, but you understand the how, right? Then what are you going to do about it? Because you're not in control of their behavior. So it's like a lot of people get stuck right in this stage, right? Because it's like, all right, I see what they're doing to me, but how do I stop it? I can't get them to stop calling me with urgency. I can't get them to stop lying to me. All right. people get stuck there, and that is also by design. Okay, a manipulator doesn't care if you're stuck. They like you stuck so that they can continue to have access to you. And actually, some of them, most of them, and again, this can be applied to anything, platonic relationships, romantic relationships, but also your job, right? So think about this when I say that a manipulator does not care if you are doing well, right? They don't need you to be doing well for them to be able to get something from you. So say if it's your job and you feel like your job is stressing you all the way out, and you think that that wouldn't make sense, because why would they do that to their employees? Um, it's because they view you as part of the pattern, and they are researching when the business goes bad, where's the weak spots, how does it get fixed so that they can run more corporations. Okay, so they don't care if they lose a few people in the process. They don't care what they lose them to either, because it's just part of a binary code for them. Okay, it's going to be 20,000 people were working doing this, and 1% of them got injured doing this. And so we changed this process so the people in the future don't get hurt, and we didn't get sued for it because we didn't know in the past, didn't pay you for helping us to update our policies. Okay, they don't care about the chaos. They actually learn from watching people fail. Okay, so this is why, again, you have to be in control of your own nervous system so that you can protect it, because no one else will. No policies and nothing, not your children, not your parents. Nobody will protect it, because they will be blinded by what they can get in the moment. And you don't need to wait around to see if you can trust someone or not. You need to trust yourself. So a boundary is not a line, it's a shift in behavior, right? So you just have to stop tolerating the things that you used to tolerate. And that's why you need the previous 4 steps, because if you don't notice them and validate them, and you don't have the language, and you're not prepared to report it, right? Then you'll never be able to change your own behavior, because if you don't even believe yourself that something is happening to you, why would you change your behavior, right? So then you just have to practice. Your confidence will go up once you get back control of your dopamine. Your confidence goes immediately up, and then you'll be able to set these boundaries and the language that goes with it. I won't be available for that. That doesn't work for me. I hear you, but this is my decision, and I'll respond when I have the capacity. That's just a few examples. And right here, I'm coming back. You still there? You still with me? I appreciate you. This is about the end of it, right? At this point, this is where I would give a link to my worksheet, right? The five mechanisms of clocking it, and I can certainly give you that if you are interested, Carla. And let's see. And also, would be the time where if you, so I have a worksheet anyway. This is for everybody that might watch this recording after it's done. I have a worksheet that you can work through those 5 mechanisms that I just discussed. And if you join my Clock It Academy, you would have access to all kinds of worksheets. Anyone that came to the live tonight will get one, of course. And then let's see, at this point, yeah, do you have any questions, or this is the time when somebody could tell me something about their day if they wanted help decoding it or whatever. So that is how that would go. And then yeah, if you think this helped you, then you can share this space with others. You can certainly tell me what was good, what you liked, what you didn't like, and like I said, invite others. And that's all I've got. So what do you think? Or I can press stop recording, but Let me see. Hold on. All right. So good night, everyone. All right.